And joining us now from Cheyenne, Wyoming, Congresswoman Cheney. Congresswoman, I want to start with the decision by the House Republican caucus to remove you this week. We had Congressman Jim Banks, the head of the Republican Study Committee, on the show last Sunday, and here's what he said about this. Take a look.
We shouldn't be talking about Liz Cheney. We should be talking about pushing back against the radical Biden agenda, and this is all a distraction from our ability to be able to do that.
Banks was saying, with Republicans so close to winning back the House in the midterms next year, that the focus should be on what unites the Republican Party, which is opposition to the Biden agenda, and not picking fights with a former president who's now living in Mar-a-Lago near Palm Beach. What's wrong with that thinking?
Well, I think it is absolutely the case that we have to have the strongest position possible going forward so we can take back the House, the Senate, and the White House. The issue is that, we cannot do that if we are embracing the big lie, if we are embracing what President Trump, what former President Trump continues to say on a nearly daily basis, which is claims that the election was stolen, using the same language he used that he knows provoked violence on January 6th. In order for us to be in the strongest possible position to be able to prevail, to be able to defeat the ideas that we see coming from the other side that are really bad for the country, we have to be a party that's based on a foundation of truth. And I'm not willing to be complicit or silent in the face of those lies coming from President Trump.
But I guess the argument is, just as a practical politician, and you are a practical politician, what about the millions, tens of millions of Republican voters who still support Donald Trump? Why alienate them? I guess the question is, just ignore him. Just don't take the bait and focus on your issues. He's living in Mar-a-Lago.
Well, I wish we could do that, Chris, but unfortunately, as I've said over the course of the last several weeks, former President Trump continues to be a real danger. What he's doing and what he's saying, his claims, his refusal to accept decisions by the courts, his claims continued as recently as yesterday that somehow this election was stolen. What he's doing is he's causing people to believe that they can't count on our electoral process to actually convey the will of the people. We have to be a nation of laws. If you continue to reject, if you reject the rulings of the courts, if you work against the rulings of our courts, then you really are at war with the Constitution. And he is a continuing danger to our system. Those millions of people that you mentioned who supported the president have been misled. They've been betrayed. And certainly as we see his continued action to attack our democracy, his continued refusal to accept the results of the last election, you see that ongoing danger.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was elected on Friday to replace you as the number 3 Republican in the House leadership, and she wasted very little time in saying what she thinks about all this. Take a look.
I support President Trump. Voters support President Trump. He is an important voice in our Republican Party, and we look forward to working with him.
What do you think of Stefanik?
Well, I think she's wrong. When you have a former president who did what Donald Trump did, who provoked an attack on our Capitol to try to stop the counting of electoral votes, to try to steal the election, a former president who continues to threaten the democracy in the way that he is, he's forfeited his opportunity to.
Well, I just want to ask you, I understand what you say about Trump. I'm asking you about Stefanik, who is wrapping herself in the mantle of Donald Trump. You said to play along with the big lie is to betray Republican voters. Is she betraying Republican voters?
What I said in my last remarks to the conference as chairwoman of the conference was that if they were looking for leaders who would be complicit in spreading the big lie, I wasn't their person, that there were plenty of other people who would do that. I think that it is fundamentally dangerous. I think it's wrong. And I think as Republicans, especially, we have a responsibility to stand up and to say we believe in the Constitution. We will fight for that. We will fight for the rule of law and to build that foundation so that we can get back the voters we lost in 2020. I mean, that is really a key here. We lost the House, the Senate, and the White House while Donald Trump was president. We've got to get voters back so that we can get Republicans back into position where our policies are the ones that are in place, that frankly are the ones that are necessary for the future of the nation.
During your round of interviews this week, you were also asked about House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy, and here's what you had to say about him.
I think that he is not leading with principle right now. And I think that it's sad, and I think it's dangerous.
When you talk about him being dangerous and the way he's leading the party, and I asked this about both McCarthy and Elise Stefanik, are they being complicit in what you consider the Trump lies?
They are, and I'm not willing to do that. I think that there are some things that have to be bigger than party, that have to be bigger than partisanship. Our oath to the Constitution is one of those. I've worked in countries around the world where you don't have a peaceful transition of power. What's happening right now with Donald Trump and his continued attacks on the Constitution and the rule of law is dangerous, and we all have an obligation to stand up against that.
You also say that Kevin McCarthy should testify, but what it appears is going to be a new commission to investigate the riot on January 6th, and should testify specifically about the conversation he had with the president on that day, where he reportedly called the president and said, "You got to call this off." And the president said, "Kevin, it appears some people are more interested in this election than you are." I asked Congressman McCarthy about that a couple of weeks ago. Take a look at that exchange. Has the president ever reached out to you since that report came out to discuss what you and he talked about in the January 6th phone call? And did you say to him, "I can't because we're under oath"?
No.
That never happened?
It's never happened.
And you would
never even close.
And if it did happen, you would agree that would be witness tampering?
Yeah, but never happened.
Congresswoman, do you know anything about that, whether or not Kevin McCarthy and Donald Trump talked and the president tried to reach out to, in effect, get their story straight about what happened in that January 6th phone call?
Leader McCarthy has spoken to a number of people in large groups and small groups since the 6th about his exchanges with the president. He's spoken publicly on the House floor about his view of the president's responsibility. I think it's very important that he clearly has facts about that day, that an investigation into what happened, into the president's actions, ought to get to the bottom of. And I think that he has important information that needs to be part of any investigation, whether it's the FBI, the Department of Justice, or this commission that I hope will be set up.
What do you think that accomplishes if he testifies before the commission? I mean, I understand your concern about President Trump and what you say are his lies about the election, but what do you think it accomplishes to talk about a conversation on January 6th? Do you think it raises issues of President Trump's responsibility for the riot, whether or not he's trying to tamper with Kevin McCarthy as a witness?
Certainly. I mean, I think that any conversations, and we know certainly that conversation happened, any conversations that have gone on with the president about the president's potential involvement in January 6th, his potential determination not to step in and offer assistance, any conversations that have to do with any members of Congress, those people who may be retired. We know that there were conversations in the Oval Office before this about the possibility of declaring martial law and seizing, election and seizing the ballot machines. So I think that all of this really points to why it's so important that we have a commission. We've done that after Pearl Harbor. We did it after the Kennedy assassination. We did it after 9/11. It's the way that we as a country come together in a nonpartisan fashion to understand what happened, to get to the bottom of it. It must have subpoena power, and to begin to take steps so we can ensure it never happens again.
I got about a minute left, Congresswoman. I want to talk about you finally. You were on track to perhaps someday be the Speaker of the House. Now that's over. You've been removed from leadership. Your re-election next year in Wyoming is at least in question. I guess the question I have for you is, are you prepared to make this politically the hill you're prepared to die on?
Look, I cannot imagine a more important issue than whether or not the Republican Party is going to be a party that embraces and defends the rule of law and the Constitution. And I am firmly committed to being part of leading this party back to a place where we believe and advocate on behalf of policies and substance, where we lay out an agenda that helps to attract voters back to the party, where we move away from this loyalty that so many, particularly in our House leadership now, have apparently pledged to Donald Trump, the president who provoked the attack on the Capitol and who refused to send help. So I think that what we have seen over the course of the last couple of weeks is really, the opening salvo in what is a battle for the soul of the Republican Party, a battle for the soul of our democracy. And I intend to play a very big role in that, and to do everything I can to help ensure that we can restore our party.
Congresswoman, thank you. Thanks for joining us today. Always good to talk with you.